Hey there, good morning. I see the light is really shining through there with some shadows. Whatever, it's what it is. So, this video is morphed into a lot of things as it's been downloading or being revealed to me on my way to work today. It started as a video on surrendering, and that's still what it's going to be, but there's a lot of different aspects to it. So I'll just get started with it. This is going to be geared more towards work. Anybody who works with me knows that there have been a lot of changes happening with work, and that I have had no control over any of them. And originally the video was about how throughout my career in nursing, I have learned to surrender to what is happening in front of me. And one of the big examples that I have that really stands out is when I was working in special care one day. And just a little background, when you work in special care in a smaller hospital, a lot of times you're the only nurse there that's caring for these critical patients. And not that you don't have a team to help you, because there's always a team, somebody to call. But in the immediate caring situation, you're the one there, you're the one responsible for making the decisions, elevating communications and whatnot. And I had started my journey as a holistic nurse at that point, and was starting to learn about surrender. Not surrender, that's not the word I'm looking for. Suffering. I knew it was an S word. I had started learning about suffering and how our minds are generally the cause of our suffering, and the thoughts we tell ourselves and the stories we make up about what's happening in our outside world. A lot of times, or what I'd say probably 100% of the time, is what causes our suffering. So specifically, I remember an instance where I was caring for a patient, and I was in the special care unit. So if you're not familiar with what special care is, it's like an ICU. However, we also care for patients who may be going through withdrawal, or we can overflow patients into that unit if we have more patients than what we could handle on our med-surg floor, that sort of thing. So it's kind of like a catch-all, but mostly critical patients. And so I was working with a patient. I believe I had 2 patients that day, and I think there was maybe an admission coming or something like that. I don't remember the details. Anyway, it was a more acute situation day, more acute patients, things like that. And the computer that I was working on in the patient's room wasn't working right. I don't remember exactly how it wasn't working, but like I said, I had started learning about suffering, and about how we internally have control over how much suffering we experience in any situation in life. And I specifically remember the thought going through my head, oh, this technology should just work. And as soon as I had that thought, I remembered, wait a minute, I don't have any control over what's happening with the technology, but I do know I can put in a work order for it. I can call IT. And yes, that is absolutely inconvenient in the middle of everything else that is happening. However, to focus on that and to continue to put energy into it by thinking about it, stewing about it, perseverating about it, was not going to help the situation. My role as a professional nurse in that circumstance, or a healthcare provider, don't even have to be professional, and it can be your role in any situation, but my role was to handle what came up and to do it as efficiently and effectively as possible. It wasn't to bitch and complain about the situation and say what should be happening versus what is happening. My role was to find the solution, and maybe it was inconvenient if I had help there to call if I needed it, but it was my role to manage what was happening in that moment. So what I did was I immediately recognized that thought went through my head, and that wasn't a helpful thought, and that my next best step would be to call IT and get the ball rolling on fixing the computer. That's right there in the patient's room. So I did that. And I remembered that, and I used it more and more throughout my nursing career, which I still have a nursing career, just in a different, I'm not bedside anymore, I'm in management. And another another specific example that happens all the time in healthcare, and I would imagine in any workplace, is that we have what's called a patient visitor safety report. And I know when I was doing bedside nursing, something would occur and I would think in my head, I need to fill out a PVSR for that. That's the acronym for patient safety visitor report, PVSR. And it would, again, initially I would get that feeling of, oh, this is so inconvenient. But I challenged myself then with, you know what, Kelly, it's not what you were expecting. And it may be disappointing that now you're going to have to stay a few minutes late to fill that out or whatever. But that's why I'm here. I'm here to help. I'm here to make things better. I'm here to care for patients. And that's part of the process. And then I would just take a deep breath and I would release the suffering that I was currently experiencing because of the thoughts that I was having around what was happening versus what I thought should be happening. We should on ourselves a lot, and that causes a lot of suffering, and we should on others too, which I try not to do. I try to be aware of that and allowing space for others to make the decision that's best for them. Anyway, that's a side point. And practicing that letting go, recognizing, because you're human, you're always going to have a reaction, right? And I believe, what is that saying? It's not a saying, it's like studied and found to be pretty accurate, that the first 90 seconds, it may be less, but I want to say within the first 90 seconds of feeling an emotion and experiencing a thought that causes an emotion, or vice versa, because it works both ways, is when you don't necessarily have the immediate control, but within that 90 seconds, that's your opportunity. After 90 seconds, that's what it is. At the 90-second point, anything else that you're thinking, perseverating, is a choice. And you're choosing to continue to dwell on it, or you're choosing to do something about it and let it go and let it move through you. So that is, okay, yeah. That was the main message. Some deeper insights into that is ego control versus soul control. And this is a concept that's like opening up within me right now. So let me see if I can work through it. Ego control. Here's an example of ego control. When I first decided to go into nursing, I had been working at a company called Johnson Components in Waseca, Minnesota. And they had moved a lot of their product to another country, and they were eliminating positions and roles. And I had the opportunity I was given the choice, not just me, others were too. The company workers were given the choice to take a severance package or stay working and potentially be fired or laid off, whatever. And back then there was a program in Minnesota called the Dislocated Worker Program, where they would actually pay for 2 years of college. And not coincidentally, everything is divinely guided. That night, or one night soon after, I was watching the news and saw how there was a shortage of nurses, and a little voice, and usually your soul is that quiet little voice. I heard a quiet little voice say, I could do that. I could do that. And then the more that grew, that seed that my soul had planted grew within me, it turned into, well, yeah, I'm really interested in the human body. And that turned into, because back then I wasn't aware of my soul talking to me. I wasn't aware of spirituality in general. I was aware of Christianity and Jesus and the Bible, but it wasn't spiritually, it was as religiously. So what that little seed planted by my soul turned into was an ego control of, if I knew how the body works, then I would know how to control my body. So it all turned into a control thing, an ego thing. And of course I didn't see it then, but I can see it now as things have evolved. The difference between ego control and soul control. So with my ego control, if I thought I knew how things worked, and by the way, I'm a learner, so if you have ever done, not insights, but it's a different kind of personality test. I've done it a couple of times and I always come up as learner number 1. I am driven to learn, consume information, let go of what doesn't serve me, and implement and embody what does. So I've read, I would say, close to at least 1,000 books on self-help, read, listened to books, articles, journals, studies, all that kind of stuff. So my point with that is that initially ego-driven, my learner, the learner in me, was wanting to learn everything so that I would have total control over my outside world, not knowing at the time that I have absolutely no control over the outside world for the most part. I mean, I can choose what I'm going to wear today, that sort of thing. And what it led me to over these years has been understanding that my ego control doesn't serve me, and my soul control, and I wouldn't even call it control, it would just be surrendering to, it would be my soul surrender maybe, or surrendering to my soul path. This is where I haven't fully developed it yet, but as I said, this is all like just being revealed to me on my way to work. So so my soul surrender is really what has brought me joy, happiness, understanding, peace of heart, peace of mind, and love in my life, is realizing that I have no control over what's happening outside of me, but I do have the control over my thoughts that I continue to think and the choices that I continue to make. So maybe that's where the control part comes in. It's my soul surrender, my soul control. And I can tell you, of all the hundreds to thousands of books that I've read, the ones that have stood out to me the most and been the most helpful as far as understanding the concepts I'm talking about are the Untethered series by Michael Singer. He's got several different books. One of the books, The Surrender Experiment, is super cool. So I read the actual, the Living Untethered. I can't remember the exact names of them, but if you type in Michael Singer and Untethered Soul series, you'll get all of his books. So I read those books before I read The Surrender Experiment, which is essentially the story of his life, and how when he started in his early 20s realizing how his thoughts were not helpful, how he basically his ego was not helpful. And I don't want to bash the ego. We do need the ego there. It's just learning how to, it's understanding how our ego is either serving us in the moment or not serving us, and making the choice that is going to be a more soulful choice. It's kind of meshing the ego and the soul, the spirit, higher self. So I would highly recommend those books. If anything I'm saying resonates with you and piques your curiosity on learning more, I would recommend those books. He also has it's not a webinar, but a workshop, a program that you can join. And I haven't joined the program. However, the same program I found on Audible, and I listened to that. Now, I would imagine that that things are much more in depth when you're actually doing the workshop with him, and it's online. But I get so much from the books and everything that it's just unbelievable. That was a stutter. Unbelievable on how much his work has changed, helped me to improve things in my life just since I started reading his books back in January. I've read other books too, and in the program that I'm in now, that's a year long, is not Michael Singer's program, but I do go back every now and then when I need a little reminder of the concepts that he speaks of, because it's not something you listen to and then you got it and you're done. You have to actually do the work. You can't listen to a book and not implement, or go to a class or anything. You can't do something or go to something and then not implement it and expect it to change your life. You actually have to do the work to change your life. And that happens in stages. We're human, we're learning, we're growing, we're developing, we're expanding. As I say that, I see us as like a spiral opening up bigger and bigger and bigger, expanding. And anyway, yeah, so that is my video for today. I hope that you all have a wonderful day, whatever is happening, and take care.